All right, let's get started. Hello everyone, whether you're here listening to the live session or if you're listening to the recording. I just want to thank you for tuning in to our fourth episode of our AI and blockchain series. We are here very excited today to share this space with Ocean Protocol, one of the current leading projects in this space. And today we will be discussing quality data sets for AI with Roberto Alcantara and Jesse Eisses. Um, I would like to welcome you, and again, thank you for being here, and thank you for accepting our invitation, Roberto. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now? Sorry, I think I muted you before. You should be able to speak now.
Hello.
Hi.
There we go. I think it's working out.
There you go. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Hey, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on here. I don't do this enough, so great meeting you, Josie, and Gabriella. And yeah, I can talk a bit about myself. I can't quite talk about what I'm working on exactly at the
Okay.
moment, but the yeah, my background is actually mainly in game design, right? And I always wanted to build and create awesome games, but I didn't really want to be reliant on anybody.
Okay.
So I to coding, and I wanted to all the best designers in the world were all software engineers. So I went deep into that. I kind of, well, as deep as I could, and I've worked in the games industry for, you know, I don't know, 15 years or something. I used to be the designer that also had a dev kit. And, my main focus has always been building the systems that make the games fun. So, in terms of what I'm doing right now or around this area, I guess I'm working at Ocean. I've helped to initially get their grant program started, and the goal was to bootstrap a lot of the projects building around the protocol. So we helped to distribute something like $2.5 million to over 150 projects.
Oh, wow.
So there's been a lot of teams. Yeah, it's been really cool to see, all of these community of Web3 developers building so many data focused, whether it's protocols or data sets or uh, different AI models, and trying to create companies around all of this, right? And build the value flows and everything that Web3 is so good at. So, but again, as I came here to join you guys, I was looking at some of the questions, right? And I think the thing I wanted to lead kind of, the conversation forward is that my focus, is less on things like how to uh, build your models or use XG Boost,
Yep.
but more about, my experience has also been in data engineering, right? So how to get uh, not just good quality data for AI, but data that's actually valuable, right?
Yeah.
And can actually build products that people care about, and we can actually feature why Web3 is so cool. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'm gonna pause there. Yeah, great to be here.
Well, that's great to hear, and especially now that AI is extremely relevant and current, and everybody's doing it and everybody's using it most of all. I think these are great initiatives to be putting out there. So that's really good to hear. Thank you for that. Jesse, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to whoever's new here?
Of course, great to meet you, Roberto. Really, yeah, happy to have you here. I've been following Ocean Protocol like since the beginning, and it's an amazing project. And I think, yeah, what you guys are doing is so important for the space, and especially now the AI boom has started. Yeah, really eager to see what you guys are developing as well. A bit about myself is I have a background in artificial intelligence. So at university in Amsterdam, I studied AI. Did some research in AI as well for a little bit after my master's, mainly about deep learning, and I was developing a deep learning pipeline for um, basically for creating deepfakes just before it got really popular. So I was like in that space back then, and then it grew really quickly. But I've done work in the data engineering side and developing algorithms. And shortly after that, I started Effect Network or Effect.ai. And mainly when we started Effect.ai, what we were trying to solve was to make access to data. Like if you needed a specialized data set for your project, to make that way more accessible for everyone, because it was clear that back then that large data sets were too hard to access and to create. It was pretty expensive, and they were, especially back then, extremely valuable for developing algorithms. This was just when, yeah, deep neural networks were really starting to take off. And with Effect Network, we were trying to give everyone access to a workforce that can create a quality and great data set by doing human annotations. So now, like 6 years later, I think this is more relevant than ever. So yeah, excited for this topic today to speak more about why quality data sets are so important. And I'm really eager to hear more about Ocean Protocol's approach as well, and how you guys are yeah, developing new and important solutions at the moment.
Thank you. That was actually the the best introduction for the topic questions. So, without any further ado, let's move on to our discussion points. So, I'd like to start with, in your own words, what is a quality data set and why is it essential in AI? Would you like to start, Roberto?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
You know, um, I, again, I'm going to kind of try to root myself in more of my wheelhouse, right? And I think you could start with the kind of classic definition of like accuracy and completeness and that kind of stuff, right? But I think just it needs to first to have a good data set on any problem we're trying to solve. We just need to have a good context of the problem and its ability to describe that. So, I think I don't know. I think we see all these problems in organizations. I get to help a lot of. I've worked with a lot of companies, and I tend to step in and just see that things are kind of we have whatever's available, and a lot of the times, you have less than ideal things to work with. But as long as what you have gives you good context of what you're trying to understand and the questions you're trying to ask, you're probably going to find some pretty good answers. And it's pretty amazing, how much we can squeeze out of some even incomplete data these days.
Yeah.
So it's really great to just be able to join some of these companies and see where they do have some gaps, and spend a little bit of time on the cleanup, and bringing it all together in a way that's easy for us to process, and just how much of a huge difference that makes, right? And there's always been that talk about 80% of the time you're spending up just cleaning up the data, and that's kind of where I've spent most of my time, right? Rather than in the kind of AI tweaks and magic that you can sprinkle over it to kind of um, you know uh, fill in the empty spaces and handle sparse data and do way more complex stuff. like with sensors, which I haven't had quite the chance to go and touch. So to me, a quality data set is that, right? It gives you the context you need so that you can then understand the terrain or the problem space a little bit, so that you can then ask some good questions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and I haven't said why it's essential yet.
Yeah.
I just try to kind of define to me what a quality data set is these days.
That's perfect.
And yeah, how's that?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jesse, would you like to answer the same question? What is a quality, in your own words, what is a quality data set and why is it essential in AI?
I totally agree with what Roberto just said, and I'll just put the same thing, I think, in my own words. But yeah, maybe give some other examples. But so a quality data set in my experience is like the most important part for a quality data set is that it has diversity and it covers it at least should contain the information that you want to grasp, because data sets, when you use a data set to train an algorithm, you're basically you want to sort of extract from that data set information that you can use to make predictions, right?
Right.
That's what AI is about. It's basically searching for a solution for looking at the data and then search for a solution to a different setting, or often it's a prediction given a certain context. So your data needs to cover that, right? That's an essential element. If you have too little data or way too biased data, or your data just doesn't cover the spectrum of things that you want to cover with your algorithm, then it won't suffice. So like the diversity is really important, and obviously the quantity. Then of course I totally agree with Roberto that also the quality is important. So if you have like a lot of rough data or in the wrong format or whatever, you can spend, and that's, I think, like 80% of a data scientist's time is often spent on cleaning it up,
Yeah.
getting it in the right format, taking out the outliers, taking out the anomalies, taking out the things that just don't really represent what you care about. So a quality data set needs to have that as well, or you're just spending way too much time on sort of getting things out of there. Or if like anomalies stay in, you risk getting a really biased and wrong model that sort of capture the noise instead of the signal. So you need to have both these things. Like for example, if you want to predict the weather and you only have a data set like from a certain time of the year or from a certain area where it's more rainy than other areas, I mean, you will never get a good weather prediction model
Yeah.
that you can reuse in different areas of the world. So that it's all of these things are important, but diversity and just quality and cleanness are really important. Yeah,
All right.
I think that's how I would describe it.
I was going to say that, it's I think to your point, Jesse, it does of course you get biased algorithms, right? And I think it's if you can understand that they're biased, sometimes they can actually be good, right? I think the classic example on Google and deep learning where they threw all of these videos from YouTube, right? And the thing it trained itself on the most was cats, and then it just wanted more cats because that's the thing that it could optimize for. And similarly, if and you're totally right in terms of games as an example, sometimes the things that users got this great offer and they bought all of these items in the game, but it actually didn't quite lead to better performance overall. And you'll continue to make those mistakes and actually worsen the product performance. So yeah, I just wanted to agree on the diversity, the shape, and the size of the data. But if you understand the limitations of it, sometimes that's sufficient to solve some of the problems that are immediate in the business. So that it's accessible, right? Businesses are not like afraid of using the data that they have to solve the problems that they're trying to tackle.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think the bias isn't even maybe not a bad thing per se, as long as we can show the bias and be aware of it. Like if you would use a data set to train an algorithm and you can like prove that there's, or you can indicate that there is a bias, which would also reflect in that algorithm, I think it would solve most of the, because it's extremely hard to get an unbiased data set. I think it's nearly maybe like there's always some bias or always something like women are way underrepresented in a lot of data that's available, right? And it's something really cultural and hard to solve. But like being able to indicate that, and maybe different data sets have different biases, but transparency in that regard is important. I think that's a good point as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. So, if I understand correctly, a quality data set will result in an aligned AI system that will provide answers, maybe not correct answers, but relevant answers to the questions we ask the AI system. I don't know if I if that was confusing.
Yeah. I just, if I were to put it into some other words, it's just sometimes it's such the data scientists that I work with would say, well, it depends on the
Yeah.
context. So, and I guess the point is just sometimes, if you understand that there's bias in the data, but if you're trying to solve a problem, sometimes it's not bad. It can help you to still
Okay.
solve the issue. And yeah, and I think that's interesting in itself that by understanding that aspect of the shape of the data, you can actually use it to solve some problem.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to figure out, like, as an end user to AI tools, I'm speaking for myself, whether.
You're going to get great video.
All right. I've been there, I think. Well, thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question. Again, I'll start with you, Roberto. In your opinion, what are some common issues that can affect the quality of a data set, such as missing values, data imbalance, bias, which we referred to before, and how would you address them?
Yeah. So, I guess uh, Jesse is a data scientist, right? Him as a user, you would, probably get this file that has a bunch of missing data in it,
Okay.
or I see, there's not enough women being represented in the sample, or there's all these uh, things that can happen to the data, or even once Jesse has the data, just depending on how he makes decisions and how he trains the model, that can cause all sorts of things to the end result, right?
Yeah.
So even supposedly there are things that ChatGPT just can't answer. It's kind of like hard coded not to. So even then, if you create a great model, you're still going to have kind of people kind of putting fences around it.
Yeah.
So um, I mean, you have ways, data scientists have ways to like address these issues with data quality, right? So in terms of like if you are missing some data, if there's not enough women, it's funny. Data science and building these models has all these funny things, but like so if you don't have enough women, maybe you just copy some of the women and you just resample the thing, and that's called oversampling, right? And you
Okay.
just take some of what's already existing in there, and you just make more of it. So that helps to balance the training, so that way it's not just all men. You have more opinions. It's the same opinion, but in terms of training the model, it doesn't quite care. And that's one of the weird things about these things that are being built now is you can just, even if with the example I just gave, you can still do some of the stuff throw it at it and it works. And that's kind of like the magic of AI, which isn't quite magic. Jesse would be able to explain that much better to you than I could, but that's where it's really incredible, and how AI has evolved to being something very different than what it used to be,
Yeah.
10 years ago or 5 years ago. It's really different, the technology and how things have evolved in terms of what these models are capable of
Yeah.
doing relative to the data that we have and how we have to prepare it for it to be able to do amazing things with it.
Right. And to think of how it's gonna evolve in the next 10 years, it's also mind-blowing, I think, especially for what we're talking about now, which is basically the quality of an AI system, from what I can understand. Jesse, would you like to answer the same question? In your opinion, what are some common issues that can affect the quality of a data set, such as missing values, data imbalance, and how to address them?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think I'm like from when I was doing active like AI training and building algorithms and working with as a data scientist on these data sets. I think the world looked very different than it does now. So I know back then these were like big problems, like missing values, data imbalance, mainly because I think right now the technology has advanced so far, like the infrastructure that can be used, like GPU capacity and access to data, it has advanced so far that basically, ChatGPT could be trained on the entire internet, and it would cover like all cultures that are already online, like that were
Yeah.
posting like videos and text, and it's covered like basically the whole internet, right? And most books that exist have been scanned digitally and can be used for training
Oh,
algorithms.
wow.
So I think it covers like a way broader cultural and broader data spectrum than it did when I was working in the space, when it was more about the data sets available would be like English books, or it would be like images of like this form, which would
Yeah.
always be very biased and very narrow. So I think that improved. I think like I'm just trying to think ahead, right? I think because more and more cultures are getting online and more like data, like text and books and images from all over the world are becoming digitalized, and
Yeah.
like translations from AI are becoming better and better, and AIs are able to abstract like concepts like from the language and think in a higher like think I'm calling it, but just process data on a higher level, like on um, this from different languages, but still understand the concepts that are being used. So this happens less and less. I think the main problem right now that is popping up is that there is so much AI generated content that it's being used a lot for training. Like if you would scrape the internet now compared to a few months ago, there is way more like AI generated content online that is
Yeah.
being used to train on. So I think we're more getting into a place where human data is becoming scarcer and a lot more AI generated content is out there, which I think will produce a lot of problems coming up. So I think to capture like real human data, I think is still going to be an important. It's going to be more of a scarcity as we see AI becoming more prominent and more active online in all places where people post content.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that. That's true. But and then, well, people might come back to, the base of it all, which is human intelligence, in the sense that here we're asking, like, how would you address that? Maybe that's something that will sort itself naturally by doing that, right?
Maybe uh, when you're you mentioned that, Gabriella, that maybe we'll sort it out naturally. The first thing that I think of is usually how, when you deploy an AI
Yeah.
model to do something. So at this point, I'm talking about something like ML ops, right? So a company deploys a machine learning model. It's outputting some data. It's outputting some recommendation, and that output is usually kind of fed back into itself.
Yeah.
So you can learn the results, and then you have to monitor that, right? And then you have to see how it's doing. You know, is it still getting to its goals? It's still achieving a good performance, and then iterate on it, right? And that's kind of the ML ops part. Is you're doing this ops on this system to monitor, improve, redeploy, and continue to improve. So I also, you know, I've been playing a lot with like content generation and doing all sorts of things. I also
Yeah.
am doing some stuff with e-commerce. So I've been playing a lot, you know, with a lot more at least with LangChain and various other AI tools. And I think that there's still a lot of value with the human in the loop part. So, you know, even though I try to use an agent to build stuff for myself, it's just not that high of a quality. So like I still have to tweak various things and do a bunch of massaging to get the results that I want. You know, so people are saying, "Oh, I can press one button and get 100,000 of X." Like, well, that I don't know how high. Yes, you can, right? And there's power in numbers, but I think that relevance, right? If we're still talking about, and Google is saying that like they're still going to, um, you know, AI can do certain things just as well. So I think all of this stuff is still going to count towards some sort of relevance score. So if you're still in the middle of things and iterating with
Yeah.
it, the output's going to be better. So the ML ops part of the system will continue to improve. So that's just some of the thoughts I kind of wanted to share on that.
Thank you. Oh wow, that's amazing actually. That is uh
I don't know what you think about that, Jesse, but yeah, I don't know how much ML ops you've done. I'm not, you know, too deep on the subject either. I haven't done that stuff
but
live on production systems,
yeah,
but I understand the overall loop of it.
yeah. Well, thank you for saying
Yeah, it's
that.
really
And
interesting. I'm honestly not too familiar with MLOps, so it's for me quite a new area, but I'm really interested and yeah, insightful to hear that.
um well, thank you both for these answers. My mind is blowing right now because as a marketeer, I think we've all used AI um, in some sort of way. For example, when writing an article and you get some ideas from it, and then you kind of add your input to it. But then I'm just thinking about what we were saying earlier, that if there's so much AI generated content and this content kind of keeps repeating itself because you just add a couple of changes here and there, but then the next person, the next marketeer that wants to generate a blog post is going to get the same result and it's going to change things here and there, but then it comes to a point where maybe nothing else is being added. So I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. But thank you, Roberto.
I wanted to add
Yeah,
something to top of that, Gabrielle, maybe to kind of round it off,
yes,
right? Is that if you extrapolate to that, then you know it's just noise, right?
exactly.
So you know, what does become valuable then it is still the attention economy, right? It's still about how you connect with people, and I think you know when you put it at that way, Gabriella, a lot of people are pointing towards just how important community is and networks are, and how you know social graphs are kind of moat, which is how you connect with people and how you build your audience or the people that align with you, your tribe. So I think that's something that people were continuously highlighting, right? Which is that social proof or reputation or whatever it is you want to call it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, the human in the loop. And may I add, that is the name of our upcoming hackathon, actually. So it's amazing that you just mentioned it on your own. But yes, how important it is still. I think in one of our first Twitter spaces, we asked the question whether humans should be worried about this overtaking of the AI. And it was pretty much like we all agreed that, you know, humans are still very much needed and will be for the foreseeable future for AI to function. Um, So yeah, let's move on to the third question, which is how would you pre-process and clean the data to ensure its quality and sustainability for AI applications? Do you want to start, Jesse?
Yes, of course. So sounds like more of a hand-on question, but um, it like I said before, like a data scientist spends a lot of time cleaning and processing data to make sure it fits into their pipeline for training an algorithm. So there's many ways to go about it. I think it's not a fun element of it. Like I think like hardly anyone really enjoys having a massive like few terabyte data set of maybe text or images and having to process that into a format that fits their needs, right? Maybe you have like if you want to do some facial recognition training, you actually have to crop out the faces and make like you have some face box detection algorithm, but you have to compare all the versions that are available and the processing power and uh, process those into like cropped out phases, then you would have to go into another, like maybe you need some landmarks or that used to be the case at least. Nowadays you can more sort of rawly dump them in, but cleaning is just such it's not fun and it costs a lot of time. So I think in this day and age we're looking more towards accessing already clean data. I think that's going to be that's a more important part. You want to make sure where you get your data from, that you have some degree of like that it's already high quality. I think that's where the space should be going. Of course, Ocean Protocol is a data marketplace, and if like places like that where you can see like characteristics of the data set, the format it is in, maybe I don't know if Ocean Protocol is doing this, but if you have like perhaps algorithms or people to clean up data set and enrich it a bit more, that you have the base data set plus, you know, already being processed, already being in this format or filtered by these categories. I think that like the convenience should be it should be way more convenient to access. And AI is more and more able to clean data itself, right? You can like throw in more crude data into an algorithm and it would still be able to consume it to some degree.
Yeah.
But if it's like as a really practical tip on how to clean data right now, I think it's it's hard. The data science tools are there, right? But you need to get your hands dirty, and it's just a lot of time and effort. Use the libraries and tools that are available. Like there's so many algorithms and data science libraries. Like Python is definitely by far like the king. So like, I don't like Python necessarily, but if I have to touch anything related to data science, I would use Python to do all the pre-processing, and just because it's convenient and there are so many tools available to load in data frames and clean and work with different formats. So use the tools available and yeah, definitely look for clean sources of data. I think the source of data is where you can gain the most. If you download an already processed proven data set, you can save yourself a lot of time. I think that's I guess my answer to the question.
Thank you.
How to approach that.
Thank you. I think this is super helpful for anyone who's out there building AI. Would you like to add something to that question, Roberto? On pre-processing and cleaning data.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. a bit of a potato these days. So, I'm totally with you, Jesse. If there's, and that's with anything. If anything is done for me, I'm gonna go and get it.
Yeah.
I hate doing the work that somebody has already solved. And yeah, I agree with you that it's, now there are a lot. You already mentioned a couple of, really great places to go and get data. Before talking about that, I think that, uh, yeah, so there are, I'm trying to address your questions about Ocean. We do have various data sets available there. I think there have people that similar to what you recommended that are working towards providing frameworks or platforms
Yeah.
to clean, enrich, improve the data quality. Yours included. And yeah, for myself, I have mainly been, again, even before the model, I usually deal with different companies or businesses in various stages of wherever they're at. And it's challenging because usually the data is inside a database table somewhere, and it's just whatever the systems they've built, that's what I have access to, right? So usually for me, it's more of a business problem, less of an AI thing, but I still think it applies in terms of there's a lot of um, uh, data you might be able to get from different
Yeah.
places. So perhaps you were saying, maybe there's only weather data from summer on this place and winter on another. So maybe there are ways for you to just kind of bring it all together and normalize that data and or generate some sort of common schema that the thing can process. Um, you know, uh, for for data scientists, I remember I joined a Kaggle group for a bit, and I was helping to support them, and it was amazing how much time they spent just on doing like data exploration, right? So they
Yeah.
would just go and there's like these tools with pandas called Pandas Profile. There's a few of them. And just to take a look at the data and how it's distributed and all of the parameters and like various correlations and all sorts of things. So then they can then figure out how to structure that data, right?
Yeah.
Because there might be really great relationships and certain ways to uh, prep that data. So like here's in games, for an example, uh, number of sessions that the user plays on the first day,
Yeah.
like on the first 24 hours, is like super meaningful. It's like one of the strongest predictions for retention. There's like similar things in terms of just engagement metrics. So how often a user plays, having really strong relationships with monetization and all sorts of positive
Yeah.
things. So those metrics aren't necessarily just there in the data, right? You kind of have to, as you were pointing out, extract them or do some feature engineering, or even just once you have that data, bucket it in a certain way so that your model can pick up on it.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, so I think the more you understand kind of the business problem you're trying to solve or the thing you're trying to solve for, I think there's some you can draw a lot of insights, which then leads you to figuring out how to slice up the data and structure it in a way that's constructive as possible. So that you can then have all that great things you were referring to, Jesse. Hopefully have more data quality out there that people can access in these repositories, whether in Notion or otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you. I guess, like you said, Roberto, this is a problem that both of these projects, Effect Network and Ocean Protocol, are trying to solve. which is, yeah, basically the quality of the data, Ocean Protocol being a marketplace for data sets, and Effect Network providing the human intelligence needed to clean it up, or enhance it. Um, oh, that was really good. Thank you. I guess,
I think
yeah,
we could just add on there. I think one of the things we've tried to do at
yeah,
Ocean, if you guys look at some of the recent things we've been working on, so one of the things I've helped to develop with Trent, who's the founder. I'm very fortunate to work very closely with him. We've developed this thing called data farming,
awesome.
and the idea there is that um, quality data sets or models should naturally, or because people will be building businesses around
Yeah,
it, will drive revenue in the protocol level, right? So sales in the market, um,
yeah.
or sales to the API, or sales to the model, whatever it is. But the point is that um, those assets and that traction is the signal um, that we put in front of the DAO participants so that they can vote on the data sets with the most traction as a way to basically curate quality,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So,
Okay.
so the concept, right, where we're really trying to push towards this objective function of how the protocol aligns everybody towards building quality and value. So it's not, about um, liquidity comes naturally also as a
Of
result,
course.
because the voting power that you are applying, right, is based on you locking up your ocean. So we actually we leveraged Curve's contracts for how they manage basically the governance of their protocol, and we're building this system so that we can align liquidity and voting with data quality and traction. So, and usually, if over time people don't maintain their data or the quality drops, that will likely express itself as people not buying it as much. So, traction on that data set will go down. And therefore participants are incentivized to go somewhere else,
Okay.
or to work with a provider to improve that quality, right, and maintain a good product available in the market. So I just wanted to kind of just touch on that a little bit,
Yeah.
because yeah, we're really trying to kind of use a DeFi where data meets DeFi to create, an economy that is naturally incentivizing towards driving that outcome. So I wanted to just kind of touch on it. Yeah, cheers.
Right. It's the perfect
That's really
system.
cool.
Yeah.
Just if I can add
Yep.
a quick comment there, I think that's a really cool example. And yeah, really nice you guys are doing that. I think this is where Web3, AI, and data come together, because with these DeFi systems and being able to stake tokens and vote for the quality of data sets, we're making it really transparent what the quality is like. It makes it transparent if you would buy a data set on Ocean, like the cost, but also like people testing for the quality. Being able to track that on chain in a transparent way is, I think, these days becoming more and more important. At Effect Network, this is exactly as well what we're trying to achieve, where because Effect Network is creating data from scratch, we're actually there's humans creating data sets or enhancing existing data sets, but we want to make it very transparent, even on chain, that you can see that people got paid for creating a data set. You can see which people did it. You can sort of judge the diversity of that. And that's the origin of it, right? But soon as that data set hits a marketplace, you also want to have people judge that data set on that marketplace. And you want to, I think, have a trail from beginning till the end user, till even the algorithm that was trained on the data set, or even if like often you have like a base algorithm and then there is some specialization or a LoRa being trained on top of it, but you could like track that all down, especially on blockchain based projects like Ocean and Effect Network. We're going to provide an audit trail that gives users, end users of the algorithm, even like a complete trail from the original source of data to where it was traded and how it got into that algorithm. And especially now, because the web was used to be open and you used to just be able to scrape it and train algorithms, and that is changing, right? You see Twitter and Reddit, they're protecting their APIs because they realize that's the only value that they're actually that they have to tap into to make a revenue. But it also means that when these data sets become closed, I think open Web3 based blockchain based solutions will become, we're the counterweight to to do supply open data that everyone can use to train algorithms and make sure we remain in an inclusive, freedom empowering network of open source projects. I think there's these two parties, but Web3 and blockchain are so important for creating this open, inclusive, being able to track down what happened in the past and making sure that the algorithms and the data you consume are traceable. We're providing that infrastructure, so I think it's a little bit off track to the question, but I think it's just a topic I feel really fits in that same range of questions.
Yeah, I wanted to, triple down on what you're saying, Jesse. I believe the best data sets will come from likely DAOs and many other places that take control of their data, right? Where we can push ownership and control of the data to the individual, but then create these incredible systems where the provenance and the it's not quite the I forget the name of it's not the lifetime of it, but it's Arweave, for an example, providing perma web solutions where files can't be deleted. So I love healthcare. There's so many challenges with healthcare and like companies trying to build stuff around it. But we have this perfect infrastructure to host our data, encrypted, and then provide specific people with access to it without them actually getting ownership of it, but giving them the access to deploy models and many other predictions on top of it. So I think we already see in many ways where open protocols are providing some of the best data that is permissionless and is available to anybody. I think it's going to be very hard for Twitter and these other networks to outcompete the social networks that do grow in the future, whether it's Nostr or Lens. So these social graphs. People talk about like this moat with Google, and how OpenAI has no moat, and it's basically like in the beginning they have a moat, right? They're growing linearly, and then there's open source and public blockchains and everything else, and they grow a little bit slower, but they're eventually growing exponentially, and at that point it outcompetes everything else. So I think similarly, data quality and everything else will eventually move on chain. The quality of it will grow exponentially, and it will outcompete with whatever we have in private systems these days.
That's brilliant. I think including your DAO into the quality of your product is how you make decentralization work. Giving ownership to everyone who's contributing. To me, it's what will ensure the quality of it. So yeah, kudos to that. That's brilliant. So we got a couple of minutes left. So I'm just gonna go ahead with the fourth and last discussion point. And I guess I just want to know what your opinions are on online repository, and resources that provide quality data set, of course, such as Ocean Protocol. There's Kaggle, there's a UCI machine learning repository, Google Dataset Search, just like a general point of view for these various marketplaces. Jesse, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry, of course. Yeah, there's many sources for data, right? I think this is sort of an extension of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
But for me, the future of where to get quality data sets, it has to be publicly accessible and somehow traceable. And we need to know of these data sets, like what element is machine generated, human generated, what are the biases. Yeah, this is a nice sort of recap session I feel of all the previous points. And to me, like I don't believe that the current internet, like our current social networks, I think social networks are one of the most important sources of data, like that are currently like to get just a grasp of like, because an AI tries to be like a general AI, it tries to understand concepts of human behavior and stuff. And I think social networks, because so much of our lives has moved online,
Yeah.
is this major huge repository where AIs can learn these things from. But the pattern I really think that what we're gonna see is that all these platforms like Facebook and Reddit and Twitter, they're all gonna close their APIs, and they're going to they realize that that's their value, and they're gonna try to monetize it. So I
Oh.
really believe that these things will be declining a lot, and I'm a big fan of Nostr myself, but there is more like Lens is also a great social protocol that's decentralized. There's going to be decentralized alternatives, and these are going to climb up, and I as AI builders and yeah, also infrastructure providers in for managing data sets and creating data sets. I think this is a moment for us to shine and provide that infrastructure where we can provide way better data sources than the ones you just mentioned. And we can do better. So we can really provide data sets that are proven to be generated by specific people that also got rewarded for it, right? If I write a brilliant answer on Stack Overflow on some technical question, right? Or maybe someone writes a beautiful poem as sort of on some forum about a certain topic. And these are consumed by AIs and they get like AIs use that data to help out and to basically become equals to humans in the digital space when it comes to writing and drawing. But they need that data. So being able to trace that back and being like completely open about it, I think all these platforms you just mentioned are sort of yeah, they're all gonna change. Like Ocean Protocol is the one in there that's like at the forefront and really innovating. Where the data comes from, I think, is maybe even a more important thing. So, like with Effect Network, we're creating a platform where you can prove data origin as it's generated by either human or algorithms. But there will be like a quiet, just an elegant hash proof of sort of the origin of data. And as soon as it hits a marketplace like Ocean Protocol, you can verify and yeah, just verify like on chain that these things are actually like algorithms are actually trained on what they're trained on. So when it comes to data set, I think first of all we have to look at where data comes from. That's either going to be like Lens or what Nostr I think is growing pretty quick. It's very scrapable. You can just get all the data in there and train on it and sort of prove who wrote things. And then have data annotation platforms like Effect Network, where you can also showcase where the origin of the data is coming from. Those will become like the raw base data sets that then end up on a marketplace and people will enhance and add to and judge and rate and pay money for and like distribute basically what people pay for data sets and where it comes from. So I think the scene is going to change dramatically in the coming years, and Web3 is going to be like the major thing, the pillar that this will be built around in the coming years. That's my opinion. I hope that was clear enough.
No, wow, thank you.
Uh,
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, you can, okay. You can touch on it too, Gabriella.
No, I was just gonna say that it's mind-blowing what you said, Jesse. I hadn't thought of that, the amount of data that social media platforms have right now, and how important it is to have these decentralized alternatives or options where, um, you know, data is owned by the community and by the people. Um, I guess that was, I was just blown away by that thought. But yes, Roberta, I would like you to direct the same question to you. Maybe give us your conclusion on everything that we've talked about today, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about that too,
Yeah,
Gabriella. I, I've always been very drawn to social networks. We, a lot of games are extremely social by nature,
yeah,
and I think that's where we get the strongest effects and people the most passionate. Um, and yeah, it's interesting to see, recent moves with Twitter and others due to OpenAI and or whatever else. Sometimes it's just I don't know how many people still work at Twitter after Elon Musk, so I don't know how many services are still available.
yeah,
But yeah, it's it's amazing. I think that the interesting part. So first, to the question of data marketplaces, as Jesse was saying. Um, I think that the generation, the attestation, the provenance, the I created this, it is mine, and if I sold it to you or it was used in some other way, that we understand the paper trail.
yeah,
Um, that is, at the heart of trust, right? And understanding many of the points that we talked about today, like whether, as Jesse pointed out, whether there's good diversity in the data, or if there's enough uh, examples of all of the different users or behaviors that we're trying to understand or predict. Um, that's kind of at the heart of the data quality problem. Um, I The way I look at it in terms of um, these platforms, versus Web3, is you have that part, right,
yeah,
which is what you guys are talking about, which is like the data quality and where it comes from and the attestation of things. Um, and then, these platforms are trying to, um, and whether it's Stack Overflow with people's answers that AI is then scraping, or if it is, um, uh, well, perhaps perhaps Snowflake is not the best example, but maybe there are more open source things like Hugging Face. There are many other uh, Kaggle, you could consider it for certain things. I wouldn't call it like a data marketplace or somewhere maybe where you would get to access specific data
yeah,
sets. It's more, it's different. But you don't have those platforms are great, but as just was pointed out, and as we've been talking about it, we don't have the right incentives mechanisms or the right um, uh, ways to take that user and help them or empower them to come and develop and completely immerse themselves into it in a way that creates new revenue streams and that they're able to build on top of these protocols in very new ways, right?
yeah,
So that part is still missing, and perhaps it is something that they could do in the future. But I think with blockchain and where a lot of companies are positioned, it's just really hard, and many of them have not been crypto pilled in order to like make that pivot,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's where the opportunity is. Going back to how I'm positioned, right, in terms of how I approach a lot of this is just um, I care about product, I care about users, I care about you know uh, people that are retained, and for us to grow the space. I actually think that there's a lot of really cool stuff that we can build. If I work on many different things at the same time. There are some things I'm really excited to build, and they're not complicated. You know, that's the one thing I wanted to kind of double down on, is that I think there's some really cool things that we can build that solve problems that people will really care about, and are not complex. It has nothing to do with dank sharding or like, deep neural networks and reinforcement learning, right? It's just like, um, yeah, there's just some cool building blocks with like permanent storage, access, and licensing that we can build some really interesting things in crypto right now. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that I'm going to try to. Maybe that was my wrap up.
Thank you so much, Roberto. I really think we like this conversation will help so much to anyone out there who's in the process or thinking of building an AI system, and that's specifically what this series was created for. So I really want to thank you. And thank you, Jesse, as well. We have run out of time now. So, well, this has been an amazing experience. And at least I can say for myself that I've learned a lot. Again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And thank you so much, everybody who tuned in, whether it's the live session or if you're listening to the recording. We are very excited to see what's next for both of our projects. So, again, thank you and have a very good night.
Thanks for having me here. Yeah, it's great meeting both of you, and thanks everybody.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot, and thanks all the listeners. It was a great chat. Thanks.
Yeah, looking forward to catching up with you guys. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye.